Welcome in to a midweek edition of the Locked On Packers Squad Show. I'm your host. My name is Brandon Sneide. This week, this game in Detroit is the biggest prove-it game for Packers head coach Matt LaFluer. How will he respond? How will he coach? And it could just define their season.
I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and back in 2023, on Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions, the Packers started with a deep ball to Christian Watson, and it set them on a path to the playoffs. A repeat?
Hey, this is Jags. Thanksgiving game. Not much week for prepare. See who prepares the best.
Go Pack Go! It's the Packers Squad. Everything Green Bay Packers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Titletown. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the frozen tundra with all the cheeseheads, the Packers Squad Show starts now.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts. You will certainly find the Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for the fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. As always, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Bet $5 and your first $5 bet could net you $300 in bonus bets. The game of the year, ladies and gentlemen, is upon us. Packers-Lions, Week 13. Lots to get to on the program this evening. We will dive into the group chat. We'll break down our keys to hopefully what is a Packers victory tomorrow on Thanksgiving. We'll get to our extra points of the weekend. Of course, as we do at the end of the show, stick around. We'll give our final score predictions. But like we always do on the midweek edition of the Locked On Packers Squad Show, we have our eyes on the enemy, and it is the familiar foe, the Detroit Lions, currently sitting in third place in the NFC North. They just barely got past Jameis Winston and the Giants at home. It took that game to overtime. Peter, let's begin with you. Your initial thoughts heading into Thanksgiving Day game against those Dan Campbell-led Detroit Lions.
This used to be a nightmare matchup for the Packers a couple years ago. And even going back to 2021, when Dan Campbell threw every trick play in the book at the Packers, when Jordan Love played half that game, their physicality, their ability to run the ball, their ability to be explosive with the run game. But that has changed this year. And that has changed this year for really three reasons. And the explosive plays is everything for this team. The fact that this is the best explosive play defense we've seen in Green Bay in a long time, that they are league leader, not allowing 10-plus yard plays, league leader, not allowing 20-plus yard plays. The easiest way to score is to create explosive plays on offense, right, Coach? Like if you create explosive plays, you are infinitely more likely. That's like a football thing. That's where the football and the number Venn diagram is just a circle. Like football coaches know that intuitively, and the analytics guys are like, this is huge, you got to do it. But then if you look at the other side, Brandon, Jordan Love this year against man coverage, #1 in QBR this year. This Packers offense has had answers against man coverage. And Jordan Love has been the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz this year. Well, what are the two things the Lions want to do, Coach? They want to play man coverage and they want to blitz you. They want to be aggressive.
Yep.
And so if that's what you want to be, okay, then it's strength on strength. And the Packers are the best in the league at doing it. The last piece of this, not to like preempt the whole game plan here. Jahmyr Gibbs he's not Barry Sanders, but God dog, he is close. In the open field, that guy is a menace, right?
Oh, man.
One of the only reasons they beat the Giants, Peter.
100%. 80-yard touchdown run. I mean, he saved their bacon in that game.
How many times do you see that, Peter? I mean, that long of a run.
You don't. It's like him and Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. Those are the three guys that can do that. And it's not Saquon this year either.
Nope.
On outside runs this year, guys, the Packers lead the NFL on defense in yards per carry against outside runs, 2.8 yards per carry on outside runs. They are setting physical edges on the outside. They are rallying to the football. So this is strength on strength. And the Packers, again, number one. This is what they're elite at. This is why I don't think week 1 was a fluke, guys. I think this is just right now, this year, for this team against that Lions team, this is a good matchup for Green Bay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Doesn't it seem like that first Detroit game was like a million years ago?
I mean, it feels like a different season ago, quite frankly. So much has happened.
And it was interesting because like all of a sudden we're sitting there at Thanksgiving and we're playing in Detroit on Thanksgiving. That's America right there. But I think that Green Bay's defense was so stifling. And anytime you talk to anybody, or I did this week, they go, that defense is unbelievable. I go, they're as good as advertised, and their numbers. Again, Peter, you're the number guy. I don't know any of those stats and anything, but all that's pretty, that doesn't lie though, right?
I'm
Numbers
convinced,
don't lie.
Coach, I'm convinced Peter just throws letters together and uses them as stats.
You guys know.
It's unbelievable when Peter
right?
says it.
I'm just messing with him.
No, 72% of all statistics are made up on the spot. So
What was that one? Like 90% of 60%, something like that.
50% of the time it works every time.
Sorry to derail your answer, Coach. Go ahead.
Well, that's okay, but I'm really looking forward to this game, and I think. Remember, we were talking about the big thing was they weren't getting turnovers, and all of a sudden this past game, Sack City, turnovers galore, and that changes games so fast because it changes field position, it changes the offense's ability to score more, and I tell you, they wreak havoc on offensive lines, and I think you're saying, Brandon, that the old line that Detroit's beat up, well.
Frank Ragnow just came out of retirement, Coach. They're banged up. I believe
he's not going to play this week.
He's not going to play this week.
Come back was against Dallas because he announced today he's coming back. I mean, that's my guess. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell were on the phone to Frank Ragnow this week, going, "Please, my guy, you have to come back," because Graham Glasgow, the center, he's a journeyman. He's a mediocre player. Tate Ratledge, the right guard, has not been great. And so he's a rookie offensive lineman. Like it's tough.
Yep.
Coach, you know this, like those guys, it doesn't matter. You come from Georgia.
Yep.
It's that's why any, not to get too far off track, but like any of the such and such a college team against this, no, even in the SEC where it's full of future NFL players, it is a different beast. And Micah Parsons had that group in hell playing 40% of snaps.
Yeah.
What is he going to do playing 80% of snaps lined up over a backup left guard who last week he couldn't handle the New York Giants front. Yeah. And so let me introduce you to number one in I guess it's probably going to be white. I was going to say green and gold. He's going to be in white in green and gold, but you guys get it. Like their ability to scheme things up for this team is just going to create all sorts of problems for this offensive line, which has been bad. Dan Orlovsky, former Lions quarterback, called this a bottom 5 pass protecting offensive line right now. Yep. You can't have that against this pass rush right now.
And I tell you, Jeff does a good job moving that kid around. You always put your best guy on the worst guy, right? So you've seen him lined up as a linebacker. You've seen him lined up over the right guard. You've seen him on the right side, the left side. Jeff does a great job.
Coach, you see that play where Micah, he lined up almost as an off-ball linebacker, got a running start and just dump trucked Ryan Kelly, the center for the Vikings. Like
both of them, right?
I was going to say it was the right guard as well. I don't know who was in that moment.
He took out 2. Oh wait, he was a bowling ball on that play.
Yeah. And let me point out.
Does he look thicker to you than he did in Dallas? He looks his upper body. It's like when he couldn't do anything with his back, it's like he just did bicep curls and tricep extensions for
somebody pointed that out, and there was a side by side, Peter. But nowadays on social media, like you never know what's actually a real photo and what's not.
He looks bigger,
but there is a noticeable difference. I agree with you.
He looks bigger to me.
That guy's a super difference maker. They're getting their money's worth. They're getting their money's worth, Peter.
Coach, I think we haven't talked about this since they just got him. But I was talking to a former Penn State wrestler who still keeps up with the program and the team and stuff. And so he was there before Micah Parsons, but he was telling me that the football practices weren't enough for him. The football lifts weren't enough. So they'd practice, they'd lift, and then he'd go work out with the wrestling team. Like this guy is a competitive psychopath. And that's what you want in a pass rusher, right? Like you want a little crazy. You want a guy who's got at least half a screw loose as a pass rusher. And man, he really on the football field, at least he does.
Peter, did you hear what he said about board games for like Thanksgiving and what they do? He said he said it's the only time he's a prima donna is when it comes to board game. Like he does not want to lose. Like, and that's been the thing. He said even with his girlfriend, I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend, he will even go at her in a non-aggressive way, of course, but like they will go at it during board games, playing cribbage
as someone who does not handle losing well and is very competitive even at board games. I am very competitive at board games. I can't remember the last time I lost at categories by the way. Like I'm undefeated at that. My wife's family doesn't even want to play with me. They're just like, no, we're not doing this. Well, let's play something.
But coach, how valuable is that? Like you've been in those locker rooms, you've been in those meetings to have a guy, and I'm not saying Rashawn Gary isn't, I'm not saying Kenny Clark or Xavier McKinney weren't, but like that feeds off of people. Like they see that guy sign the contract that he'd sign and get the accolades that he gets. And they're like, man, this dude is every rep at practice is 110%. Like that has to trickle down to the other players, correct?
Yeah, and when you have a lesser player and he does that, what are you doing? Like a All-American scout team player? What are we doing here? But I tell you, Reggie White practiced that way too. He was just all those great ones. They just practice hard. They really do. And when you're just looking at the speed or the power to speed that guy's got, it's incredible, his get off and how much he can. And he's taking inside moves on tackles like all the time. You usually don't get that because it's usually inside out, right, on the pass protection. But I mean, he's beaten tackles inside so many times. But he's fun. He's fun to watch. And I tell you what happened. I think last week, Gary and all those guys got tired of hearing that they're not productive. They heard that more than one time in practice.
Well, and coach, it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence. I said this on our post-game squad show. I don't think it's a coincidence that Matt LaFleur was asked about Rashawn Gary's snap count, and he played the most snaps that he's played in a month. I don't think that's a coincidence, or at least by percentage. I don't think that's a coincidence at all.
Do you think Goody goes, we need to see him more?
I mean,
we're paying the guy, right?
Listen, you've been in those rooms. Like I don't know how much the general manager is going to get involved in stuff like that. I don't know if Ted Thompson or someone was doing that. I don't know if Brian Gutekunst is doing that. I wouldn't be surprised.
Ron Wolf did it.
Because it seems like Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst have a much better working relationship than Mike McCarthy had with Ted Thompson. And so I wouldn't be surprised if those conversations were had. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt LaFleur is going to Jeff Hafley like, hey, man, 52 has got to be out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that he goes, how come he's not out there? I'm guaranteed that was brought up. And the thing is, though, that's a healthy relationship because that head coach and that GM are tied together. They're just tied together.
And look, people push back when I said that reporter questions don't matter. I think they do matter. I think that stuff, like when the head coach has to sit up there and answer why Rashawn Gary, who's getting $90 million or $100 million, is not on the field. You don't think he's going, I don't ever want to answer that question again, Jeff Hafley. Yeah. Make sure that guy is out there when he needs to be. I don't tell him to stop putting his hand up. We'll get him.
Yeah.
But if you're on the field and you're making $100 million, you gotta play, brother. Like that's the deal. That's what you signed up for. That to quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for.
Coach, you've been in these situations. You've been on these short weeks, play Sunday, get ready for Thursday. Thanksgiving adds like a different layer, I think, to it, right? Yeah. There's outside distractions. And I think it's a little different maybe than Christmas, depending on how people celebrate their holidays. Walk me through, if you can, in detail, how this actually comes to fruition. Because we see the injury report, Coach, right? Like a guesstimation of guy, X, Y, and Z playing or potentially playing or at least participating in some form or fashion. If you could, from what you can remember and what you went through, how did you guys prepare for an opponent, albeit a familiar opponent, on a short week?
Right. So here's what it looks like. So they played on Sunday, won the game. On Monday, they had to have the team come in to watch the film, make sure what the injury report was. You have to have one day off during the week, and if that's a Tuesday, they have Wednesday practice, and they're flying out to Detroit. And there's nothing there. So here's what you do. You go into your game with your base packages. Now, we've always had like really good and really good games on Thanksgiving in Detroit because all you did, you didn't have time to put other stuff in. So you really leaned on your base packages. And maybe a couple different formations or motions or that, but your base stuff is what's going to win this game.
The other thing I wanted to ask, Coach, is when you look at, the Lions, they played an overtime game.
Yep.
That defense was on the field 37 minutes against the New York Giants. The Packers defense was on the field for 22 minutes against the Minnesota Vikings, and they're playing with a ton of they stole the Skull chant, for crying out loud, Brandon. So that stuff's got to matter, doesn't it, Coach? Like that wear and tear. I mean, you played 50% more football 4 days ago than the Packers defense.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? That they only played that little of football, and especially the second half.
Perfect. Right? It was a perfect scenario.
It's more like 60, 65.
The defense was on the field for 15 snaps to be exact in the second half.
So here's how Detroit.
That's crazy, man.
Here's how Detroit and Green Bay are the same. they got this exact same amount of time to prepare for this game on tomorrow. Same amount
But they're
of time.
coming in with different wear and tear on their bodies. And I think that's a really important thing to keep out here. Like if you're Matt LaFluer, and it's going to bug me and Brandon, but if you're Matt LaFleur, you're going, okay, let's make it hurt. Here's 6 offensive linemen. Here's Darian Kennard. Come, let's play big boy football for a half and see where you are and see if you can wear them down. I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the plan here is, hey, you guys were on the field a lot. We're going to make sure these are long drives. These are 10, 12, 15 play drives because in the second half, it's like when you pick up full court. I mean, we're seeing this in the NBA right now, guys. Like teams are picking up full court in ways we've never seen. And it's partially aimed at creating chaos, number one. But number two is wearing teams down so that in the second half, your star players are not quite as ready to go. Like Aiden Hutchinson, is he going to be ready to go in the fourth quarter on 3rd and 8 when he's got to go hunt Jordan Love? Or is he going to be sucking wind? And I think that is going to be a real factor in all this.
Yeah. You know, the thing is too, it's a flight, but it's 45 minutes.
I mean, it's
you
not.
know, it's a nothing deal. So that's not the only thing I really like.
Very for crying out loud.
The thing that I liked the best about playing on Thanksgiving was I was home in my own home at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Having dinner with my family. So that was a big deal.
Peter, you mentioned the Lions kind of beat up, and rightfully so. Both of these teams' injury report looks like a Walgreens receipt. But if you look at the Packers, Matthew Golden, this is as of most recent after today's walkthrough. Matthew Golden, questionable. Quay Walker, questionable. Keyshawn Nixon, questionable. Nate Hobbs, questionable. Is there concerns, Peter, with you? Obviously, no Jaden Reed. He still hasn't been reinstated from the IR. Is there concerns with you, Peter, for the Packers side of things as far as depth goes?
No, only because I thought Isaiah McDuffie kicked ass last week. I thought he had his best game as a pro last week. So at the very least, he's coming in with a ton of confidence. I thought Kamal Hadden, I mean, for a guy who hadn't played, I don't think an NFL snap on defense.
Correct. That's correct.
Came in and like played physically. He played with an edge. And this is the Micah Parsons point. This is the energy begets energy point. He came in and the standard is the standard, right, coach? Like you gotta play to the standard. So if everyone else is flying around, you got to fly around too. And he's like, I don't think anyone had more fun playing football on Sunday than Kamal Hadden. He must've been going, thank God that we are here and I am getting this opportunity. Like what a cool thing for that guy. Not to mention Carrington Valentine is feeling himself to the point that he's posting memes about where is the jet? Where is Jettas? Where is Justin Jefferson? Because they didn't get anything on him. I mean, Carrington Valentine has come in and been spectacular for this Packers team. So it's going to be a tough matchup. I think this is going to be a Jameson Williams game. Our pal Matt Derry over on Locked On Lions said this is probably going to have to be a Jameson Williams game. They're going to have to create explosive plays. Well, guess what? You throw the ball deep on this team at your peril because Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams, who we probably have not talked enough about on this particular show, and I'll take the blame on my show as well. He is having an awesome season. I'm not going to be surprised if at the end of the year I'm going, Evan Williams, a Pro Bowler. Like this safety duo, no Kirby Joseph in this game, Brandon. So everyone's knee ligaments can rest.
We're good.
Easy.
We're good.
So, but that's a huge deal to be able to push the ball down the field. Brian Branch is not really a center field type player. That's Kirby Joseph. Brian Branch is really more of that movable piece. And so, man, this is a big deal to not have that guy when the Packers have both of their guys at that key of a spot.
To echo your point, though, Peter, because you're spot on about Evan Williams, and I obviously will take blame for that as well. I asked Wayne Larrabee, who is the voice of the Green Bay Packers, on our local radio show. I said, take Micah Parsons out of the equation. Who's been the most impressive player on the defense? And it didn't take him more than 2 seconds to utter the words Evan Williams out of his mouth. I mean, he has spoken, was speaking very highly of him. And again, back-to-back games with interceptions essentially ended both games, albeit that one against the Vikings, I think the game was out of hand anyway, but he did end that game against Jameis Winston, I should say, and the New York Giants. Before we move on, Coach, when you look at the Packers and you look at the Lions, it's two teams, as you know, coaching in that division. You're not going to necessarily surprise anybody. And I know turnovers, it might be an answer you kind of lean towards when this question is asked. But what area, what phase, what part of the game must the Green Bay Packers win in order to beat the Detroit Lions?
I'd like to see some more explosive plays down the field. I think we're ready. We're ready to get that. And I think I was going to bring this up later, but the tight ends have to be an intermediate threat because the last couple of weeks since Kraft has left, and I say it all the time, but I think we need to do a better job in the middle of the field to take advantage of that, and that's got to be some tight end play. Is
this a must-win, Peter, for the Green Bay Packers?
If you want to win the division, I mean, I don't know if that it's a must-win. You look at the Lions, the Lions' schedule to close. They have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL to close. I mean, after this game, they've got Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings, Bears. So the Vikings game is going to be, not the same, but they got to go play Dallas, and Dallas just showed they can beat anybody. I mean, they came back to beat the Eagles in convincing fashion. The Rams, probably the best team in the NFL right now. Aaron Rodgers would love one more chance to stick it to Detroit, a team that, he's never said I own you, because that was never even a rivalry when he was the quarterback. They just beat the Lions all the time. And then that final game in Chicago, week 18, I mean, that could be for a playoff spot for both of those teams. So if the Packers win, they put themselves in pole position in the NFC North, because 2 against the Bears left. And then that Vikings game, I mean, that could be, Brandon, you could be playing quarterback for the Vikings for that game. So, I
wouldn't, but you're right.
Well,
you could.
Would you have been much if JJ McCarthy had just thrown the ball into the dirt every play on Sunday, he would have had a higher passer rating than the one he ended up with. So,
but I bet you Brandon wouldn't have started to go, guys, sorry, I'm not playing very good.
I think you could have gotten out from under center every time you had the ball.
I don't want anything to do with Micah Parsons angry on the other side of the line. No, thank you. And speaking of Micah Parsons, the Packers and that defense dominate on Sunday. They get the Week 12 win over the Vikings. And as we have mentioned, quickly shifting their focus to the Detroit Lions for a Thanksgiving clash. What are the keys to a victory in the Motor City? We share ours coming up right after this.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. The Green Bay Packers, a divisional clash against those Detroit Lions. The Packers winning in Detroit back in 2023. Dan Campbell versus Matt LaFleur. There's a little animosity between the Lions organization. Ben Johnson, who left to go to Chicago, taking shots at Matt LaFleur, talking about how good it felt to beat Matt LaFleur twice a year while he was in Detroit. No bad blood has been lost between these two teams. And let's get to it. Coach, I'll begin with you. Your 3 keys for the Packers in order to come out victorious on Thursday against those said Lions.
I know this is going to sound cliche. Turnovers, explosive plays, and the ability to run the football. And I think here's the deal too. If you're Detroit right now and you're looking like, what do we got to stop, right? Well, we got to stop the runner. Then we'll go ahead and just jam it down our throats. And if we can get the run going, that's when your play action pass game can really open up and they get some shots down the field. So those things I think are really important.
Peter, your 3 keys to a Packers hopeful win in Detroit?
You got to stop the run, because if you stop the run, this offense really goes to pot. Dan Campbell, since he's been the play caller, has tried to throw the ball more because the run game has been inconsistent, and they're trying to lean more on, okay, let's see if we can get some explosives out of Jahmyr Gibbs. Otherwise, you attack. But Sam Laporta being out is a huge loss for this Lions team. Both these teams, me and Matt Derry, I was saying it's like playing chess without your queen on offense for both of these teams, because they really are the X factors. Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta are. So which coach do you trust more? Which quarterback do you trust more? And that means the pass rush is going to be key here, because this is the most pressure sensitive quarterback in the NFL. When you pressure Jared Goff, No one is better from a clean pocket, and is the delta between them in a clean pocket versus a pressure pocket. No preferred starter in the NFL has a bigger gap. And that's not just a numbers thing. Turn on the tape. Interior pressure is a huge problem. We saw it against the Giants.
Yep.
I mean, if not for Jahmyr Gibbs, like the Lions had no shot. And so that's a really bad run defense. The Packers have a pretty good run defense, especially on those outside runs. So if you can stop the run and then create pressure, and they're going to pass more, okay, that's playing into the Packers' hands. You want to throw the ball more? Okay, here's Micah Parsons. Here's Devontae Wyatt coming off his best game, at least statistically, as a Packer. Almost had 2 safeties against J.J. McCarthy, and Jared Goff can't move. I mean, what did they sack him in the first game? 5 times? And Evan Williams, we just talked about, had that crucial interception when the Packers had that 14-0 lead. The Lions, it looks like, okay, they're going to go down. They're going to score a touchdown. It felt that way, at least in the moment. They're going to get the ball coming out of halftime, and it's going to be a tie game. Evan Williams gets the key interception. That was all of our turning points in that game, really. And so those are the opportunities, to Coach's point, the turnovers. If you can play clean football against the Lions, it's going to make it much easier for this team. I hate to be a broken record on this, guys, but I think the matchup for the Packers is really setting up nicely. And we know they're going to be up for this game. Like, they have to be. There's no choice. And they know that they got swept by this team last year. They remember that. They remember going to Detroit and losing. They remember losing at home in a rainstorm to the Lions. And so, yeah, the Lions don't want to get swept, but like, isn't the urgency more for Green Bay? Isn't the pressure more on Green Bay in this situation to go and perform? Jordan Love, 2-0 on Thanksgiving. Like, this is the time of year that the Packers tend to whip themselves into shape. And I mentioned in the open, Coach, Thanksgiving 2 years ago, first play, Christian Watson. And that was the play, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. That was the one where Matt LaFleur wanted to change the first play to a run.
You got great memory.
And he called Jordan Love the night before the game and said, "Hey, can we change the first play?" And Jordan said, "No, let's call the shot play." And
that was the difference. That really was the difference in the game.
It worked, and they scored. That was the miraculous. Remember that crazy touchdown to Jaden Reed where it went through Christian Watson on that little slant flat play, and it was just.
That's when you knew it was the Packers' day on that day.
It looks like a glitch to me when you watch the highlight. You're like, "That's a Madden glitch," but the ball got through, and that was the kind of game it was for the Packers. Rashawn Gary had a couple big plays in that game, creating fumbles, and so. I think this could have the same sort of propulsive effect on the team as they try and push here this is Super Bowl or bust for the Packers.
Yeah, I think all of our keys kind of are a little bit similar, Peter. I got a few of yours as well. For me, the first one is get off to a fast start, right? I think we've seen this Packers team. Peter, I think you put it on Twitter, or I know you said it on the show before, but you go back to that 2023 game, Packers win the coin toss and they take the ball, and that's exactly what they did. They go down.
They had been deferring all season, and this was a change. I put it in my notes. I went back to my notes and looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, they took the ball."
So I would like to see that happen. I would like to see this offense get out to a fast start. I think, Coach, you kind of mentioned it. We talked about the ground and pound, and Peter, you've mentioned it. Lions a little bit beat up, but I would love to allow for Matt LaFleur to allow Jordan Love to kind of settle into this game, get some rhythm throws, get some timing throws. The intermediate passing game, which kind of hasn't really been, enough for me, as a fan watching the game and taking some more shots down the field, of course, with Christian Watson, as we saw in 2023. But number one for me is get Jordan Love going early, get his confidence building up early, and score points. Because again, how do you you guys mentioned it, stopping the run. I agree with you. How do you take the run out of the game, right? As a basic fan of football, make them one-dimensional. We saw what the Packers did against the Minnesota Vikings. It was obvious that Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason were supposed to be a bigger part of that game plan for Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. But the Packers simply just said, "No, we're gonna take the air out of the ball. We're gonna control the game." And that takes me to my second point of the game, or key to the game, is time of possession. 38 versus 22. The Packers versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now, a little bit easier, right? When J.J. McCarthy's under center as opposed to Jared Goff and the weapons that Jared has in Detroit. But if the Packers are able to do that, start early, settle into the game, Coach, to your point, Peter, to your point, then bring in Josh Jacobs, rotate him with Emmanuel Wilson coming off of a career day, control the clock, keep that explosive offense off the field. If you're able to start off fast, control the clock, control the time of possession, make this, a game where Detroit gets a little antsy, gets a little impatient. We've seen what Jared Goff does under pressure. That takes me to my third point. And Peter, you nailed it on the head. It's right up the middle. Warren Brinson last week, like, quietly led the team in pressures.
Coming out of nowhere.
Maybe not quietly. I don't know. Just it felt like it was a little bit surprising to see that, especially with the game that Micah Parsons had, and Rashawn Gary was a part of that as well. But Devontae Wyatt and Warren Brinson, to me, are going to be the two biggest X factors for the Packers in this one. If you can pressure, to your point, Peter, Jared Goff, you can pressure Jared Goff, period. He turns into Jared Goof. But if you can pressure Jared Goff up the middle, like, that completely changes this game for the Packers defense. And they will have an opportunity at a couple more turnovers. They will have an opportunity of turning that offense, into a bit of a pumpkin and turning the ball over and getting the Packers offense back out onto the field and turning this into, a game that we kind of saw in 2023. Now, that game, the final score isn't indicative on how that game actually really turned out to be, because it was a much bigger lead for the Packers late in that one. I know Detroit closed it within 7, but it was a game that Green Bay from start to finish controlled the tempo. We saw what the Packers did on Sunday against the Vikings, controlling that line of scrimmage. Now, this is kind of an extra key, I suppose, a bonus key, is that if that Detroit line offensive line is banged up, and we think that the Packers may have figured out their right guard situation, we'll see how it plays out tomorrow afternoon. But it feels like the Packers, I feel a lot more confident in the Packers offensive line than I do right now in the Detroit Lions offensive line. I saw what the Giants did. And also keep this in mind. This is a team, a bit of I talked to TJ Lane earlier this week, who every Packer fan should know. TJ Lane, former Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ with the Packers, now works for the Detroit Lions radio network. There's a little concern, you guys, about not just the Lions right now, Peter, how they're playing at home, which used to be automatic in the first handful of years with Dan Campbell. At home, they keep in mind, we just talked about it. They went to overtime against the Giants. Probably should have lost that game. If Mike Kafka coaches a little bit differently, maybe the outcome is a little bit different. But the Packers just beat J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, no disrespect, didn't look like an NFL quarterback at Lambeau Field. He went into Detroit, you guys, after Detroit's bye week and won. So there's a little concern of how this Lions team is kind of, playing at home, playing in general, but also playing at home. And speaking to Dan Campbell, Peter, is this like the biggest prove-it game, do you think, for Matt LaFleur since he has taken over? And, I know he had Aaron Rodgers and a smooth transition with Jordan Love. And I think 2023 was kind of a bonus, right? And then 2024, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, Jordan Love was banged up and things just didn't really work out consistently. But I know they're not healthy now. And I know a lot of teams aren't healthy now, but is this the biggest kind of prove-it game Matt LaFleur has faced? Because it's been a team and a head coach over there in Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions who've had his number 6-3. And now you have an opportunity to kind of put Detroit out of the race for the division. And really, a loss for Detroit knocks them out, as it sits right now, of the playoff race.
Well, one of those wins was, again, in 2021, when the Packers weren't actually trying to win football games. So, I mean, that's a little misleading, I think. But that win counts, certainly. And even if you take it away, it's 5-3. They have a winning record against the Packers. I think you were the one that brought this up after the Eagles game, Brandon. If you look at the record in big games against the playoff teams, this team has just not measured up, unfortunately, over the last couple of years. And so I don't know about the biggest prove-it game of Matt LaFleur's career. Like the NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field was probably bigger, and but
he had Aaron there, and that was but
that's
really
still,
talented roster.
That's still Matt LaFleur, right? And so,
maybe.
Like, I think if you go back to last year in Minnesota, was a pretty big prove-it game, and they did not. I mean, they shut up flat.
Yeah.
In Detroit was a pretty big prove-it game. They played really well in that game. Ultimately, in the second half, they had the lead in the fourth quarter of that game and just couldn't get a stop against an offense that was an absolute wagon. This is a different team. This is a wounded Detroit Lions team. And we said this coming in, Coach. When you lose an offensive coordinator like Ben Johnson, who's one of the 5 best play callers in the league, and you lose a defensive coordinator like Aaron Glenn, and Dan Campbell has already had to assume play calling duties here because John Morton, who he hired, not Johnny Morton, the former Lions receiver, he probably would have been better than John Morton. If the offense falls off a little, how do you react? Well, Jared Goff is like 12th in EPA per play instead of top 5. So the offense did exactly what we thought it might, and that's fundamentally changed the trajectory of this team. I think that's part of this too, Coach. This group is used to winning. And so this year they faced a lot more adversity than they're used to. You could come in and give them a little bit more adversity and give them something to think about. And suddenly they're going, wait, this is a team that flamed out in the playoffs last year. turned the ball over a million times in that game. Are we as good as we think? Jared Goff in a big game is still involved here. So, I think the Packers, they can come in feeling like, hey, we can get this team on their heels. Like, we can really create an advantage here because they're going to start wondering what's going on. We were supposed to be the team in the NFC this year, and maybe we're not.
Yeah. The thing is about like our defense, I could just hear like in the defensive meeting rooms and all that, and they're looking around and going like, we're elite, but you got to be elite every week. You can't, especially like now, it's going to start separating teams right now about this time of year, right? We're about almost into December, last week in November, and all of a sudden these teams are going to start separating themselves, and the good ones will really start taking off, and the bad ones will really be bad, and then you have your in between teams. But this is really a good jumping off point, I think, for the Packers.
Coach, how difficult, or maybe it's not difficult, but how the emotions, taking the emotions out of a game like this for Matt LaFleur, who, again, Dan Campbell hasn't come out and said anything negative about Dan Campbell. But if you guys watch the quarterback special on Netflix, Matt LaFleur was actually asked about this at a press conference. I believe it was on Monday, because the part of they're following Jared Goff, Coach. It's like a documentary if you guys haven't seen it. And they followed Jared Goff around for what was last season. And part of that was the Packer game. And Dan Campbell's in front of the team, and he says, we're going for it on every fourth down, essentially saying, like, we don't respect that Packers defense to stop us. We don't respect them enough, to put the fear that, we're going to give them the ball back. And how do you take the emotions out of a game like this as a head coach? It's a division opponent. They know what you run. You know what they run. But there is some emotion, I think, here for Matt LaFleur. It's a team that's kind of bullied him a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think you take the emotion out of games. I just don't. I don't think. I think it's built in. Especially it's a national TV game, Thanksgiving Day game. It's a division game. The emotions won't be taken out of this one. Everybody knows what's at stake on this. Like I said, the separation, they can really separate from Detroit this weekend in the division. So they can go this way. Detroit's going down right now.
I think, Brandon, let me rephrase the question that you asked me about a prove it game. I think aside from playoff games, this is the game where Matt LaFleur has the biggest gap between what the reaction will be if he wins versus what the reaction will be if he loses. If he wins, he can gain a ton of standing with his team, with the fan base. And it's a huge win for the Packers as they now look like the favorites in the NFC and maybe, or excuse me, the NFC North and maybe the NFC. If they lose, all the same questions we've had all year, all the same people saying, hey, Matt LaFleur should lose his job. All of a sudden that goes to an 11. Why? Because it goes to 11. And so that's what's at stake. That's a huge gap. So there's certainly a lot at stake for Matt LaFleur. And Coach, I absolutely love that you said you can't take the emotion out of it because these are still people. You are human beings. And so there's going to be an emotion in it. You got to find a way to channel it in the right ways. And look, Dan Campbell, I think sometimes can be a little over aggressive. Mm-hmm. We've seen that happen in games this year where it's like he's going
NFC Championship games.
He's going on 4th and 6 for reasons that don't really make any sense. And it's just sort of like, well, you didn't have to do that. Like you don't have to. And they've been going for it a bunch this year. They haven't been as successful, guys. When you don't have the offensive line, like their elite offensive line allowed them to go on 4th and short every time. Their elite offensive line allowed them to the ultimate luxury as a play caller on 3rd and 10. You can run the ball and be in 4th and manageable. Yeah. This offensive line is just not capable of doing that anymore. And so that's a huge difference this year versus last year.
Yeah. The thing is Dan's super aggressive. That's just his personality, right? I mean, everybody's team, or if you're the head coach, they take on your personality. Yeah. Now to deal with LaFleur is not a real fiery guy. I don't think, I don't see a lot of that with him, but I think his team respects him. I really do. I mean, they play that way, Now they may not be like a Dan Campbell team, but they're not, it's the Packers. So Campbell coaches his personality and he just lets that. I think that
authenticity is key though, right, Coach? You can't try and be someone you're not. Like the players, these are grown men. They will sniff out inauthentic personalities.
100%. And the thing is, when you're coaching these guys, I remember Larry Bechtel told me, he goes, Jags, if you can get these guys to their next contract, they'll do anything for you. If they don't,
I believe it.
That was one of the best pieces of advice. Larry, rest his soul. But he said, Jags, he goes, you got to let those players know that you can get them to the next contract. They will do anything for you. And so will their wives, because they'll be happy that they're getting a new contract, So, but if they sniff that you don't have that, you got no chance.
Well, Peter, I think to your point that you kind of just made, I think that's what the frustrating part of Matt LaFleur is for the Packers fan base. And I can't speak for everybody, but I can supposedly speak for myself, is because we've seen him on mic'd up saying all gas, no bleep and break. And we've seen him want to air out the ball. And he had, we both agree. We're both on the same page with the 2023 game plan. It was perfect.
Yeah.
But then we've seen the other side of Matt LaFleur where it's like, and there's no knock on the game against the Minnesota Vikings. You did I thought that was a perfect game plan, but then we've seen games where he kind of holds Jordan Love, I don't want to say hostage. I mean, Greg Olsen on the television broadcast is screaming for him to be a little bit more aggressive. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN is screaming for Matt LaFleur to be a little bit more aggressive with Jordan Love. Like, I don't know, to your point, I don't know who the authentic version of Matt LaFleur is, because I don't know if we've seen a consistent version of Matt LaFleur in Green Bay.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we know what his personality is, but in terms of on the field, he does. And look, to coach, he's already coached a long time. Like, he's already one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL, and he was hired in 2019. I mean, this NFL stands for not for long. Most of these guys are just not able to sustain success. So when you're the coach for that long, you've got to be an amoeba. You've got to grow and change. Remember Sean McVay, when he first came to the Rams, they were in 11 personnel with 3 receivers on the field 90% of the time. Well, what is the big revolution that they're doing this year? 13 personnel. Hey, let's put 3 tight ends on the field. It's totally different. He was outside zone all the way when he got to LA. Now they're running power. They're running gap scheme stuff. Like, they have fundamentally changed the way that they play. And you have to do that. We've seen Matt LaFleur do it. They've changed and made tweaks and added things. I mean, the Malik Willis offense is such a great example. Like, hey, let's run some single wing offense, coach. Let's get in the wishbone almost, for crying out loud. And like, there just aren't that many coaches. I really think it is a humility thing. Like, so I think it is, and you can be offended by this, coach, if you want to be, but I think sometimes coaches get a little arrogant in saying, well, I do this, so we got to do this. And it's the coaches who are willing to say, well, I do this, it's not working, we got to try something else. I think there are coaches who are not willing to say, we got to try something else. Matt LaFleur is willing to try something else. Now, sometimes I wish he would try something else with some of the early down aggressiveness. But I do think that is a credit to him. And he has had these bespoke game plans, these one-off game plans. I go back to the 2019 playoff game, coach, where he had a Tyler Ervin package, which is still like one of my favorite things. He's got double moves and multiple specials for Devontae Adams that they scored touchdowns on. And so like that's Matt LaFleur against the Cowboys. Every play he called worked. I mean,
Some days are like that.
Yes. And it was one of those things where every call was the call off the call. Okay. You've been watching film, Cam Newton, like you've been watching film. We're going to show you this. And all of a sudden you think I'm running a bender. Just kidding. It's a corner now and I'm wide ass open. Yeah. So when they get a chance to play teams a second time, this happened in 2023. They got blown out by the Vikings and the Lions. They came back and they beat those teams. They got the Vikings, last year, they caught Sam Darnold magic in a bottle in Minneapolis, but the Packers, they came back and they gave Detroit everything they could handle when Detroit was by far the best team in the NFL in the regular season last year. So I really think there's something to this. Matt LaFleur, a second time around, he's a really good coach. And don't forget about your guy, Jeff Hafley, Brandon. He's going to have counter punches. He's going to say like, okay, they saw this. We're going to show them this other stuff because we think they're going to have something ready for us with some of these, exotic looks and some of the Micah Parsons spinner looks. Okay, well, I trust this coaching staff to get it done. I don't know if you can say the same thing about the Detroit Lions this year, given the way that this staff has looked.
You guys have mentioned that even before the first game. I remember you guys talking about that, about the 2 coordinators being gone. And remember
I think it's a big deal.
You know what? It's bigger than what I thought it was. and Dan taking away the play calling. Did he say he's giving it back? It's like,
No.
no, we don't want. That's
never good though, Coach.
No,
right?
That 2015, right?
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy gives up play calling in the middle of the year. He's got to take it back. It's like, no, you're a good play caller. Like, go do the thing. You hired the guy to do the job. If he can't do it. And this is what I said before the year to Lions fans. They were like, well, Dan Campbell has just got a great eye for talent. I'm like, he hired Anthony Lynn the first time. He had to fire that guy. He took play calling over in the middle of the season and fired him after the year.
Dan Campbell was almost fired, by the way, himself. I think they were 1-6 his first year, and it wasn't looking pretty.
Well,
then he took play calling. So, we'll see.
He had to change the culture. And it wasn't until he started winning. It was like, he's a pretty good coach. That's like that person sitting at the finish line picking the winner. It's like,
you look at this division, guys. Ben Johnson, pretty clearly a hell of a coach. Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell is an incredible coach. Dan Campbell. This has got to be the most stacked division in the NFL when it comes to coaching talent. We thought NFC or AFC West, okay, but it looks like Pete Carroll might just be cooked. And so
the NFC West is pretty good, right? You would agree with Shanahan, McVay.
Yeah, but Jonathan Gannon still plays there. There is no Jonathan Gannon in the NFC North.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. And the Vikings would definitely be under pressure to kind of turn their season around. Or actually next year, because I think their season is pretty much over. A big one for the Packers and the Lions on Thanksgiving. And there you have it. Our keys to a hopeful Packers victory. Coming up next, each week we bring you close as possible to the Locked On Packers Squad Show. We share what we are discussing in our group chat. Stick around. We share those details coming up right after this. Today's Locked On Packers midweek edition of the Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is here, and there's no better place to get on the action other than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game even more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com right now to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Each week, we love to bring you into our group chat, give you the insights and the things we are discussing around our favorite football team. And this week, it is no different. I did mention this, Peter. I'll let you in on the conversation Coach and I had before you came into the show. Quiet group chat. And it's not a coincidence that the Packers have won 2 in a row now, because I scroll up in past chats when the Packers lost to the Panthers and lost to the Eagles, and we're facing
a lot going on in there,
and facing a tough one in New York, and facing a tough one we thought would be in the Minnesota Vikings. It was a little bit more lively, but today we got word that Packers wide receiver number 11, Jayden Reed, coming back from the foot surgery, coming back from the broken clavicle, would not be activated off the IR for the Green Bay Packers. I put in the group chat, I said, no, Jayden Reed really sucks. I had high hopes from him. Matt LaFleur had an interesting comment about you'll find out Thursday when was asked about Jayden Reed, which was an aggressive answer, in my opinion, from Matt LaFleur. But there is no Jayden Reed, unfortunately, for the Green Bay Packers. And Peter, is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Is it something that this team has already done, week in and week out since week 2? Not a big deal, or slightly big deal?
Well, I think it would be a big deal to have him, but the loss of not having him is not a big deal because he hasn't been there all year. So it's not like they're having to it's not like when you lose Tucker Kraft and okay, now we have to change the way we play offense. It's not like that with Jayden Reed. But they haven't really been able to find. I think they drafted Savion Williams thinking he could do more of the Jayden Reed stuff than it turned out he was going to be able to do. And that's why you're seeing the Matthew Golden jet sweeps and you're seeing the Matthew Golden receiver screens that would normally be run for Jayden Reed, because that's just not what Savion Williams does. Now, our pal Justice Mosqueda over at Acme Packing Company has pointed out that when Savion is on the field, he gets the ball like almost every time. It's pretty remarkable. Like, they put him out there because of the play is going to be designed for him. But if Matthew Golden plays, especially, I don't think this is that big a deal against this team, because this team has a secondary that could not stop Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins off the scrap heap and Theo Johnson and all the tight ends against Jameis Winston. So it's not like the Giants. I mean, the Giants probably don't have, without Malik Neighbors, do they have a single receiver that you go, yeah, that would, they'd probably be on the active game day roster for the Packers? I don't think so.
Maybe Darius Slayton. Maybe.
And that's like maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But Dobbs, Watson, Wicks as your three, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then if you can get Golden, Savion Williams, you get a little bit in there. And coach, we haven't talked about it much today. The 6 offensive lineman package has worked. I mean, it is really working. And what I love about that is, again, we're talking about the adaptability of Matt LaFleur. When you have 2 tight ends, coach, have you ever been on a team where you had a tight end who was as good as a run blocker as your 6th offensive lineman? Like,
I had a guy named Eric Beverly who was an offensive lineman that we converted into the blocking tight end.
Okay, so that's cheating. That's cheating.
It is cheating. But no, I have.
So my point is, you're going to gain something in the run game because you're only going to go so big on defense, right, coach? Like you're not going to. No one is going to play goal line in the middle of the field. You're going to do it on the goal line. So it's linebacker against an offensive lineman. Well, that should be advantage offense, right? And then you're getting into the play action. Those linebackers are going to start firing. They're going to start coming downhill because they got to take on blocks. And now it's Christian Watson on a crossing route over the top. They've created explosive plays out of these 6 offensive lineman groups. And I really, really like that look because it gives them so much flexibility. They can run or pass out of those looks because of their ability to run the ball from those looks. And now you're going to do it with Anthony Belton, who's 335 at least at right guard. Like I thought he gave them a lot of really good reps. Matt LaFleur was trying to be measured after the game. And then I think he was asked about him again early in the week and it really couldn't contain his excitement about how well he thought Anthony Belton played in the game. So I think this is an opportunity here for this team to show, hey, we can be malleable when it comes to replacing someone like Tucker Kraft. And Jaden Reed is part of that. Yeah. You're just going to have to create, you're going to have to scheme up more explosives.
Yeah, that 6th offensive lineman was really big last week because they, we talked about it on the show after the game is they ran duo and they couldn't fit it. That linebacker couldn't fit it. And that's what that run is for. And Wilson ran it exceptionally well. Jacobs runs it really well too. They run it a lot inside the 5-yard line. That's just what they do. Yeah. What ends up happening is that they end up with an extra gap when you put a tight end outside of the extra lineman, and it's hard to fit that. How do you fit it? Do you fit it with a safety? Does the corner come up? So they have to do a lot of coaching against that. And it's all around the whole league. The whole league's doing it. You see it in college football now. It's just I don't know if it went up, down, up, or up, down on that, but everybody's running that, and everybody's running like the tight end and 2 extra tight ends like on 13. I don't know. It's hard as hell to fit that as a defense.
The Packers even, I think they ran a handful of plays with the 6th offensive lineman and 2 tight ends. Yeah. So now you're in like 13. Jumbo 13. And so it's like, okay, good luck handling that. Now Luke Musgrave's not on the field. But he
just got to get in somebody's way though. You know what I mean? Especially like if there, I don't see perimeter runs out of that. I don't see it like tight end side, wide side runs.
Yeah, they're not really. You're not running duo. Pin pull with 6 offensive linemen.
They're running duo, and it's like I said, it's hard to fit it. Who do you fit it with, the safety or a corner? That's a challenge.
Well, and you got to feel like Josh Jacobs or Emmanuel Wilson, you're going to win that matchup with a safety or a corner.
I think you're going to get a handful of that tomorrow. I really do that. And the thing is, they had a lot of success. They don't have a lot of time to prepare, and it worked. Why wouldn't you do it? Keep doing it. You don't have time to practice anything else.
Brandon, would you go tempo early, saying, okay, we know you guys are gassed. We know you guys played a long game. It's a short week. Like let's go up tempo here a little bit and test your physical fortitude here.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, Peter. I don't have the data to back up what I'm about to say, but it feels like they're a better offense when they do those things. Yeah. I think they did that on their first drive, right? That was that big drive. I think it was like a 14-play drive that netted them 7 points to begin that game and took that 7-3 lead over the Vikings. And that was it. Like they took the lead from there and never looked back. And I think for me, and that goes back to the point of my keys to the game for Jordan Love was he gets off to those fast starts. I think that's part of it. Get him in rhythm, get him moving a little bit, move the pocket a little bit, especially if, the offensive line is still trying to figure out their ways. But I think that's a huge part for the Packers offense. I think it's a huge part for Jordan Love is moving fast and just going. And I think this team feeds off that. And again, start fast, get some points right away, let your defense come back on the field, and then, create a turnover and then settle into your offense and then settle into the game and wear them down as it goes on. I think that's a big point that the Packers need to emphasize on Thursday. We got like a minute here real quick, Peter, but I wanted to ask you, because you've watched the film, you've watched the team throughout the course of the season. It feels like it, Peter, just as a fan's perspective. Is Christian Watson the Packers' number one wide receiver right now?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because this was going to be my extra point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Well, we can transition there anyway, because Christian Watson has been the X factor against teams that play man coverage since he's been in Green Bay. And this is a team that wants to play man coverage. And so last year had a couple big plays, that unbelievable throw that Jordan Love made, guy right in his face. He steps up, resets, and then pins the ball on Christian Watson, outstretched arm of the defender. Like one of the best throws you're going to see from last season against teams that play man. He has been the X factor. To bring up the 2023 game for the millionth time, there was the first play of the game, and then he sealed the deal with a slot fade touchdown. That essentially ended the game. I think he's going to make a couple big plays in this game that are going to help decide the game for the Packers. This is a Christian Watson game all the way for Green Bay.
Couldn't be more excited. Coach, your extra point of the week, because I asked Peter his, so we'll just jump right into it, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll get into our final score predictions. But your extra point, Coach, of the week.
So here's the deal. What I've noticed about LaFluer too is, like, why would you continue to do something different when that deal is working? I know we ran the ball 42 times, and it's not real sexy, right? It's not. But you guys always like my Bill Parcells stories, right? And I'm going to give you one here, Peter. Right? So it was a deal on it was like NFL Films or something, and it was a game. It was up in the Meadowlands, and Parcells the head coach, and Belichick was the D coordinator, and they were beating the team really bad. And Belichick changed up the defense. And Parcells goes, "Are you watching the same game I'm watching? Why are we doing anything different?" So anyway, he's doing what he's got to do to win games, and that's really the bottom line.
So it's a fluid situation essentially for Matt LaFleur.
It is, and the thing is, he didn't have to do anything else. The defense just took the game over. He goes, "Hey, let's run the ball and get the hell out of here."
We got a couple people in the live chat asking about Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden listed as questionable for tomorrow, so we'll see. It looks like a wrist injury for Matthew Golden. I think that the shoulder might be okay because it's not listed on the injury report. Real quickly, before we get into our final score predictions, my extra point, the Packers today releasing Lucas Haversick. The pressure now is on Brandon McManus. There is no more leeway. There is no more, is the quad healthy? There is no more, do you need a rest or can you kick? Are you kicking? It's now. Like, you need to perform right now. You got the contract you wanted in the offseason. The Packers gave you a second chance after your off-field issue down there in Jacksonville. There are no more, Lucas Haversicks right now. I guarantee you Lucas Haversick will probably have a job, by maybe the weekend throughout the NFL. The way the kickers around the league are it feels like a fluid situation in that position as well. So right now the pressure is on Brandon McManus. I said it after the game on Sunday. I was kind of hoping the Packers had a moment in that game where they could put him in to a longer ranged field goal. I think that the farthest one he kicked on Sunday was 40 yards. It was outdoors at least.
He looked very comfortable.
He did.
At Lambeau. I thought it was the most comfortable and relaxed he looked in a long time.
He did, but I no more now. Like, it's time to kind of show up and put out, for this team and be the piece to the special teams that he was a season ago. One final break here. When we come back, our final score predictions on the Locked On Packers Squad Show coming up right after this. A clash in the NFC North is about 14, 15 hours away from the Packers taking on the Detroit Lions. I'll kick us off for our final score predictions. And it seems like, because outside of that Pittsburgh game, every big game the Packers have won, they have scored 27 points. I think they're going to score 27 points in this one. I got the Packers 27. I think the Detroit Lions will score 23. I think the Packers defense will get a stop late in the ball game. I think Jeff Hafley had mentioned it. They're not playing at Lambeau Field, but the Enter Sandman will come on. Metallica will be played at Lambeau Field for Micah Parsons, who they are, I think, echoing, some thoughts on what they want to see at Lambeau Field in the fourth quarter. I think Micah Parsons, I think Rashawn Gary. We talked about Warren Brinson. We talked about Devontae White. I think they're going to be a huge factor late in that game. I think they get a stop on Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, and the Packers win 27-23 ahead of that big showdown against the Chicago Bears at Lambeau Field. Coach, how do you see this one
I see this going 30-20, and I think what's going to happen is in the fourth quarter, you're talking about they had the overtime. They're going to get tired, and Parsons is going to take the damn game over again. The whole defensive front's going to. It's going to take 4 quarters to the fourth quarter, but they will do that. 30-20.
A 2-score game from that would be great, Coach, because then I can enjoy my Thanksgiving. Peter.
Well, Coach and I are on the same page because this is not quite playing on a back-to-back in the NBA, but it against a team that didn't have to play a back-to-back, but it might be close. I mean, the difference in time of possession. I mean, 15 more minutes of football when the other team played 22, you played 37 minutes. That's like almost twice as much, guys. Like that is a huge deal for a defense. And so I just think the more I've looked at the matchups, the things that the Packers are great at, the things that the Lions want to do, I just think this is a matchup that favors Green Bay. 30-20 was kind of where I was looking. I was thinking 30-21. I will say 28-21. I've been saying, I was asked today about it. I said I think the Packers are going to win by at least a touchdown. I just think that this is the moment. This is the thing that propels you forward. I'm done predicting Matthew Golden breakout games and all that stuff.
Me and you both.
the matchups to me are very favorable for Green Bay. And if you're gonna be a team, this is the week to be the team. And I think that's what we're gonna see here.
There you have it. We all got the Packers. Friendly reminder: the Locked On Packers Squad Show and Daily Show, free and available wherever you guys get audio podcasts, as well as over on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Programming note: no post-game show for us tomorrow. Hope all of you out there have a safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday. Peter, I was going to get to that. Peter, you will have the Locked On listeners covered, as you do all week long after the game, as well as the rest of the week. He'll be breaking everything down. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you listen. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Packers part of your day each and every single day. And also, thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And as always, stay Locked On Packers.
Happy Thanksgiving.